Hey everybody, we are live and we are started. It is 8 o'clock, 0Z, bing. Welcome to July 28th. We're in the Greenwich of the Means times. Alrighty, I'm going to get everything ready. Who's going to read the disclaimer?
You are.
No, I said one of you guys are going to read it.
If you would like me to read it, I can read it. You just need to send me
No,
the
I don't
text.
have it complete yet, so
Just put it in the
whatever.
show notes.
It's in the show notes.
Flying Life Podcast is produced to promote aviation dispatch career. Hosts of the show do not represent their employers, and this show is used for awareness and entertainment only. All facts on the show can be found in the public domain. There is no inside information being used.
Please don't get us fired.
Yeah.
Please don't get us fired.
Yeah, you should put that in there as well.
Show that we have a sense of humor.
There we go. There you go. See, look. So I'm going to hit the record button. One of you are going to read that, and then I'll go ahead and start.
Should I read it?
Sure.
I need to turn you guys.
We just have to decide. You tell me.
I'll do it. Fine.
Okay. I'll do it next time.
I gotta do something.
I'll do it next time.
Sounds good. Hey, are we going to talk about the what do you call it? The NTSB hearing?
Is it in the show notes?
No, but I thought maybe we would just bring it up. I've watched about 3 of the 4 hours so far. Haven't completed it yet, but
well, if you want to talk about it,
I haven't watched the 4th, but I just didn't know if there was anything in there that stuck out to you guys.
I didn't watch it.
Okay.
I haven't seen it yet. I've seen summaries.
It's actually pretty interesting, but I kind of want to. I mean, it's like that last hour I haven't watched yet, so I didn't know.
Let's table it till next time, and then we can all watch it.
Yeah,
we should do a live watching of it and have a 4-hour-long live watch of the government Zoom Atlas air crash. I mean, that's just riveting. We can even make a drinking game up for it.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Atlas air trivia.
Every time Robert Sumwalt says, FAA, take a drink.
Every time one of their green screens doesn't work properly,
take a drink.
Because I saw a summary of it, and like everything they said, it didn't work. So we would be gone by the hour 1.
We have angry faces. Who's angry at us on Facebook? I'm sorry you're angry at us.
Gregg looks like he's ready to hunt with that hat.
Gregg looks like he's ready to move to northern Minnesota and be a caveman.
You know what? This is my furrow beard. So I'm continuing to grow it out until I'm either told that I'm officially furrowed or that I'm safe. So it's going to get longer. So
wizard
beard.
Yeah,
let me know when you get sick of that.
Or until I have to jump seat. Whichever comes first. Which is interesting. My jump seat ride is in September, so if I get furrowed, I'm not doing it.
Don't want that.
My mother hated it. My mother is the one that put up the angry face. Thanks, Mom.
How do you see the Facebook feed? I don't have that on here.
Well, I pulled up the Facebook page.
Oh, you did. Okay.
And I clicked on the little likes and dislikes. Yeah.
I'm the one who put the heart up, by the way.
No, you didn't.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Somebody did.
That's true.
All right. That was an error.
If you click on it again, you can change it.
Oh, this is going to be great. All right. I'm going to hit the record button. We're going to get started. Gregg, move your mic down. You're a nose breather.
Yeah,
there we go. Well, move it up a little bit so we can hear your... There you go. I don't need to hear your nostrils breathing, but I do need to hear your voice.
This has to be a blooper for the show.
It will be now.
Oh, Jesus.
Who's nose breathing? All right, you can go ahead and start.
I just my nostrils are gonna flare. Hey, there's a show title. My nostrils are gonna flare.
This is our last podcast, everyone. Just saying.
You got to read the disclaimer, Greg.
Are we live?
Yeah, we have been for the last 5 minutes.
No, but you said when you record.
I already said I'm recording.
Wait a second. Hang on.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, stop. All right.
I'm not stopping.
Tell me when. Okay.
I would have told you when 90 seconds ago.
To my credit here, I had the YouTube site up and there was a delay, so stop. Okay. Ready?
No.
Okay. The Flying in Life podcast is produced to promote aviation and the dispatch career. The hosts of the show do not represent their employers, and the show is used for awareness and entertainment only. All facts on the show can be found in the public domain, and there is no inside information being used to produce the show. Please, everyone, do not get us fired.
Flying Life Podcast, episode 62, recorded July 27th, 2020. Welcome to the Flying Life podcast just about that, flying, aviation, and our lives. I'm Dispatcher Mike, a dispatcher for a major airline based here in the United States. Joining me in this episode is Dispatcher Joe, a dispatcher for a major airline based in Canada, and Dispatcher Gregg, a dispatcher for a major airline also based in the United States. We call our airlines Acme, Acme North, and Acme Canada. We do not represent our employers, hence why we say Acme. So, gentlemen, it's been about a week and a half since we recorded. Joe, what have you been up to? Joe, you're muted.
Bob Saget. I've been trying to figure out how to do a whole bunch of training for a whole bunch of folks that I've never met, so it's been a heck of a week.
Nice, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Greg, what have you been up to?
Hey, I'm still grocery shopping. I haven't
Nice.
released a flight in about a month, so hey, I'm enjoying my time off. Was supposed to be up in Oshkosh this last week, so I had already traded all the time off to be up there, and then comboed that with some vacation and RDOs. It's been about 28 days now, and I go back on Thursday to go back to work. So let's see if I still know how to dispatch when I go back.
I was just about to say, let's see if you remember how to sign in.
Yeah, my password will probably be expired, and we'll see if I can even get in.
Been more than 4 months for me since I dispatched a flight.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Dispatched a flight. I won't go there. I did work the operations floor yesterday from noon till midnight, and it was a very quiet day. I did have to take 2 phone calls in the course of 12 hours and participated in 5 command center SPO webinars. Oh, and then we had the one, as I call it, the touchy-feely check a box of collaboration phone call that they do at the beginning of every shift in the command center. And that was pretty much the, hey, what do you guys got going on and looking at today? And we go, nothing. It's a pretty quiet day. So, yeah, it was good. Um, in this episode, we're going to talk about airlines earnings. It was pretty much airline earnings week in between the two shows. Delta was a little bit earlier compared to everyone else, and JetBlue reports tomorrow. So, unfortunately for JetBlue, they did not make the cutoff for the Flying Life podcast. Absolute shame on them. Maybe they'll learn. Maybe learn next time and kind of coordinate with us when they are going to release their earnings versus us doing a podcast. I don't foresee that happening in the future. So we talked about that. We're going to talk about Qantas, a JetBlue, and American Airlines code share, and Alaska to join the One World Alliance as well. And for the topic, Dispatcher Joe came up with the idea to talk about skills to be a dispatcher. And I'm guessing pulse and breathing is not two of the skills required to be a dispatcher.
They're the assumed skills.
Okay, and knuckle dragging is not for dispatchers. I believe that is for maintenance control. Your knuckles have to drag.
Or load control.
And we all jest with our friends and colleagues in our offices. We all play a very important role. It just in my office, we make fun of each other for it. And I'm sure they say a lot of choice things of us and our knife and fork skills up there in the dispatch side of the office.
Mm-hmm.
So, without, do you know what? There's one other thing I talked about. We, Greg and I both was it last week? We're on the ADF, the Dispatch Federation. What's the ADF stand for,
Aircraft
Greg?
Dispatch Federation.
Thank you. One would think I would know that. I've only been a member for 14 years. The Aircraft Dispatchers Federation's weekly or quarterly business meeting was held virtually for the first time. Obvious reasons, something about global pandemic, and yeah. That was actually a good time. I really do like being involved in the ADF, but never really had the opportunity to take time off and go to a business meeting. And even in winter, when the business meeting was, I don't know, right next to my office, yeah, I was working, so I couldn't show up. So it was always nice to be part of the ADF and things like that, and really you really get a tale of what's happening throughout the entire industry. And it was really, really a good viewpoint to see that the things that we have going on at Acme are also going on at Acme North and Acme, Texas, and pretty much all over the place. We're pretty, we're all in a hurting situation. Greg, do you have anything to add about the ADF meeting?
No, I mean you covered it. It's a good. If you've never been involved or know what the ADF is, they have their website is dispatch.org. So get some information about them. And just a plug for our next podcast in August, we'll be having the president of the ADF on our podcast. So get a little bit more information there too. So
definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I hope you just didn't jinx it. And it's dispatcher.org, not just dispatch.org.
My bad. Sorry. Dispatcher.org.
Yeah, hopefully Greg didn't just jinx it with our timing with that for the next episode. But I'm really looking forward to it. So, all right, with
Fix that in post.
Yeah, I probably will be taking that out in post because you never announce your guest who it's going to be until they show up because you never know when the internet's going to go out somewhere.
Yeah.
Alrighty. All right. So with that, we're going to move on to the news. I even turned that down more, and it was still blasting of the eardrums. Oh, well, I guess what? We'll fix it in post. We'll hit that little button right there. Alrighty, so the first topic we're to talk about, like I said, is airline earnings week. Delta Airlines reported the week before, but all of the major airlines that I could think of have reported their earnings, or the ones that I could find. That would be in alphabetical order: American, Delta, Southwest, Spirit, and United. As I said earlier, JetBlue reports their earnings tomorrow. Um, but I'm guessing they're going to be kind of in line with kind of what we're seeing right now. And I went through and read most of the earning articles. One airline's earning article was a lot shorter than the others. And so I kind of made a chart basically going off. The big summary, as you could expect, going through all of the articles were COVID, lack of demand, um, revenues have gone down about 85 to 90%, load factor down 85 to 90%, and historic losses. This is a year over year of historic gains in the second quarter, and especially the second and the third quarter from the airline industry last year. Now that now you have historic losses. So, um, yeah. So kind of going through here. Um, American Airlines, and there's another thing. I'm a dispatcher. I am not a finance guy. So when these airlines are talking about pre-less and pre-gap and gap losses and all that, I have no clue what that means. Does anyone else have an idea?
I do.
Okay, good. Please fill in the ignorant one.
So GAAP is generally accepted accounting practices. So that's basically the things that you can do, like write-offs and stuff that are legal and accepted practices. So before you do all of the corporate finances, you have your pre-GAAP.
Oh, so this would be your before you take all your special considerations out.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So going through here, American lost 2.7 or 4.3 billion dollars, depending on which total you want to look at. And really in the aviation airline industry right now, the investors knew they were going to post losses. No one was shocked by the fact that the airlines didn't make money. I was listening to a CNBC, a Squawk Box, about the airlines and right before earnings week, and I was kind of just interested on their take. I don't know, I might have a little bit of skin in the aviation market, in the airline industry, and so his big thing before earnings week was always looking for what is their cash on hand and what did they get their daily cash burn down to. Those were the two big numbers that the investors were going to be looking at. And with that being said, I kind of went through and highlighted those numbers. So American, like I said, 2.7 or 4.3 billion in losses. They finished the quarter with 10.2 billion cash on hand, and they quoted an average daily cash burn around $30 million a day at American.
It's pretty impressive for an operation of that size.
Yeah, and both them and the next airline we're going to talk about, Delta, it said in their earnings report said that pre-COVID their daily cash burn was $100 million a day, and obviously they had revenues and all that above $100 million a day, and that's why they were profitable. But Delta lost either 3.9 or $7 billion. They finished the quarter with 15.7 billion cash on hand. They had an average cash burn of $43 million for the quarter, but at the end of June, at the end of the quarter, that was down to $27 million per day. Southwest lost 950 million or 1.5 billion, ended the quarter with 14.5 billion cash on hand, and they had $23 million average cash burn for the quarter and $16 million by the end of June for their cash burn per day. Spirit Airlines, which is a ultra low cost carrier, not very big compared to the major carriers, but I always see their banana yellow airplanes flying over their house, and that's why I included them. They lost 212 million to 365 million dollars. They had 1.2 billion dollars cash on hand. And this is what I found to be pretty impressive. Their average cash burn was $9.5 million a day, and they got that down to $1.5 million a day. So even if they don't make money with their cash on hand and their cash burn, they're going to be around for a while. which
Well, they don't pay their employees much for one, and two, they're just they don't have any international, very little overhead, so it makes sense. I mean, they don't run a huge operation.
and I'm going to look it up real quick, but I'm pretty sure they are a strictly Airbus only fleet.
I think that's
Yes,
true.
I think that's true. So for me, there's three interesting things that I want to see. The first one is, of their losses, how much of that is writing down things like depreciation, assets, debt, that sort of stuff. Because the more they can write down now, like they know that they're going to be losing money, if they can write down a whole bunch of stuff that they would normally spread out, that might make them actually healthier once things turn around, because they knew they were going to have a bad quarter. They just threw it all away. They got rid of all that overhead, and now when they come back, they're not writing as much down. So I'll be very interested to see if that's the case. And then there's two things I really want to see. Is Hawaiian? They release tomorrow, and
Oh,
Hawaii
are they tomorrow as
they're
well?
tomorrow, yeah. So they release tomorrow, and they basically, like, the state of Hawaii, as far as I'm aware, has basically been shut down. So what are they operating? I'm very interested in that, and I'm also interested in the regionals, because the regionals seems like there could be room for a lot of consolidation going on at the regional airlines, especially with the major partner airlines cutting flying and shutting stuff down. Have they offset flying to the regionals because of the lower cost, or are they just axing their partners there? That's something I'd be interested in seeing in the future as well.
Well, let's take a look here and let me see if the largest regional in the United States, if they've recorded their earnings yet. No, I do not see any earnings yet for the largest. Um, that would be SkyWest. When do they announce? SkyWest announces Thursday, July 30th, is when SkyWest announces their earning, which also surprised me. I didn't realize that SkyWest is a publicly traded airline. I didn't recall that. So, but no, Joe, you make a really good point. Is how are the regionals faring, because they still have their contract with the airline, and I could honestly see the regionals not really doing that bad because they're still getting paid by the mainline carrier, and they're not really flying those block hours that they normally would be.
Yeah, just watch out for the force majeure, because you could see some of the majors pulling their contracts and saying, well, this is, force majeure. We're just axing it completely without, ripping your contract up. So that could be a thing, especially if it's like a wholly owned subsidiary or it's a mostly owned by the major subsidiary. But again, because they're a lower cost base and there's less people flying, there's fewer people flying, they could be operating the flights that mainline isn't. Who knows? Be interesting to
Yeah,
see.
there is also the fact that I know that Acme did when this whole thing started. We're cutting two planning on cutting two regionals this year, and when this whole thing started, we just accelerated that and basically canceled the contract on them early and said, hey, look, we're not going to use you anymore, period. And that took us from a 5 regional carrier down to a 3 regional carrier.
Yeah, and the thing that'll be very interesting for me, from as an outsider, is recognizing that we're glibly talking about people's livelihoods here, but I'm very interested in seeing what aircraft types get stuck, keep around, because you look at people like Aeromexico down in the south, and they're bleeding money, and it seems like they've got these Embraer 190s, and they burn a lot of fuel, and they're not very efficient. So it'd be interesting to see what aircraft end up staying in those regionals.
Yeah, talking about regional airlines that have no longer exist because of COVID. You talk about Compass Airlines, which was started by Northwest back in 2009, and from when it was they were based out in Fairfax, Virginia when they started, and now they ceased operations on April 5th because they ran out of people to fly for, and they lost it all. I mean, no one to fly
With
for.
Trans-State as well.
Yeah, Trans States as well. There's a lot of these regional carriers that don't own their aircraft. they are just operators of the aircraft, and they're still owned by the mainline carrier. And the mainline carriers, the way the business is, they just put all their regional carriers against each other on performance, and whoever's the better performing airline gets the airplanes. The one that doesn't gets the airplanes taken away from them. And it's just the nature of the regional business to the major airline.
Yeah.
One other airline that did report earnings before we went off on our tangent was United. United lost 1.6 to 2.6 billion dollars. They had 15.2 billion cash on hand, and I believe I read in another article they were down also in that 25 to 30 million dollars a day cash burn. The United Investors Relation page is not exactly very as robust as the other carriers were, and so yeah, we had to kind of do some digging to find their information. So all in all, we're not getting profit sharing checks this year.
Hmm.
You sure about that?
Well, I'm pretty sure. I have made pretty much. I'm surprised they're not asking for this year's profit sharing check back.
There was one airline out there that I was listening to some of the investor phone calls that that they put out to the press or the media and so forth. It said had it not been for the CARES Act with the government loans and all that to keep the employees on the payroll, that most, if not all, the airlines would have probably have shut down because they wouldn't have been able to, one, pay their employees, and two, just with the demand and everything in the it just would have gone away. Um, so I found that interesting.
Yeah, I don't think we've at least for Acme. I don't think we would have completely stopped. I think the lowest number of flights that we got to was probably the lowest we'd go, even if we were losing money, because we were still providing some sort of essential service. We were still getting essential workers to where they needed to be. We were still moving healthcare workers to and from to where they needed to go. So, but no, trust me. I remember in March we had a big IT. We changed all the dispatch desk numbers March 31st into April 1st, which is no small feat. You think, okay, it's just a desk number, but everything that's goes to that desk number with ACARS routing, all that, so it was a pretty big deal. And I remember 2 weeks or the week before we go, and we were talking about, I remember saying in the meeting, and I had a director scoff at me, but like, look, this is what I'm feeling. Look, our biggest win is going to be if we actually have flights operating on this day. Because if we have problems with dispatchers sitting in the chairs, that's a good thing, because the way we're going, who knows if we'll even be operating in an airline on March 31st. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the TSA checkpoint numbers for the last week or two, and it's been dwindling. I mean, it looks like at the end of May, I'm sorry, at the end of June, the numbers were starting to climb into consistently the 700,000 territory and kind of staying there. And now, yesterday we had 751,000 people travel, but it's you see a lot of 570s in there, 530s over the past week and a half. So some of the airlines are starting to trim down their August schedules now because they just don't think the demand is going to be there. So that's going to
Yeah.
affect third quarter numbers now, and they don't think third quarter is going to be even that great.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, no, this resurgence in the virus has definitely something that has stalled the recovery in travel. Um, while we're on the topic, James in the chat room asked just our opinion when we think business travel will come back versus leisure. And I think that with the announcement from Google, was that yesterday or is that today? Google announced within the last 24 hours, I'm going to say, that they are not requiring their employees to work in the office until July of 2021. And you think if a tech company like Google is finding their employees are being just as productive being at home and working via Zoom, Cisco, Teams, name any other sort of online meeting tool, and they're still being productive and getting business done, pretty sure you're not going to see airline travel, but business travel back for quite some time.
Yeah, at this point, I'll be shocked if there's any uptick till there's a vaccine. Like we're pretty much done for the next year. That's my opinion.
No, you're going to need a vaccine, and then you're going to need 75% of the each country to get to be vaccinated.
That'll be a
And
struggle too.
yeah, and reading some of the statements that I believe I saw that the United States was hoping to have 1.2 million vaccines done by the end of the year. Okay, there's 300 and some million people in the United States. Now you're talking a very small sliver. And I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I believe strongly in vaccinations and all that, but I'm not sure I'm going to be the one running to the front of the line on this one.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, but yeah, in terms of anything picking up, it's like even up here, yes, our rates aren't spiking as bad as they were, but like in my province, our COVID number of total COVID cases is up back where it was in May. Like we're above where we were in May. So it's spiking again, and it's not good.
No.
Yeah, no, the borders. I mean, even for international, European, the Europe, when like England won't accept any, U.S. travelers, and then you got, some of the other countries now are restricting U.S. travelers.
Yeah, I'm hearing talks about Europe going back into lockdown in certain countries and certain regions. Like,
Yeah.
one of my buddies in the UK was saying something about a multi-week lockdown coming up in August. So
Wonderful.
It's going to be a long recovery, and this is not something that, unfortunately, is going to recover anytime soon. So,
I would say winter is coming, but I think winter's already here.
The only thing we can hope for the industry, in my opinion, is that we can get some sort of extension to the CARES Act. And I know some of the big unions now, and including some of the companies, are now lobbying Congress to try to get an extension to March of next year. A clean extension would keep employees on the payroll through March 31st. They can do that.
Yeah, I'm terrified of what's going to happen in September and October when kids are back in school and it's cold and flu season again.
Yes,
but that's me that's me being immune compromised. So there you go.
Yeah.
No, I agree, and talking about kids being back in school, my wife and I keep on saying every single day that we're incredibly happy that we don't have to make the decision right now. Do we send our kids to school or not? We're very thankful that school is in the basement and school is going to start on time and everything is all prepped and ready. And the way that my kids have been acting the last couple of days, school might start a week early.
There you go.
Never too early to start school.
All right, so let's go ahead and move back to
that was a little
aviation.
bit of the end life there.
Let's go ahead and move it back to aviation, opposed to the vaccine. And we'll start the COVID podcast next week. All right, so next article is Qantas. Again, if you're really shocked by this article, Qantas just retired its last 747-400 with a last flight, flown by the airline's first female captain, who she drew a kangaroo in the sky on the way.
Yep.
I saw that. That was pretty cool.
I don't doubt that
regularly. Yeah.
I don't doubt that she flew a kangaroo in the sky. But come on, someone flight planned that, and they just watched the airplane fly. And it was a very well done sky duel of the Qantas kangaroo over off the shore of Sydney on its way over to coming over here to get parked. But
Yeah, Qantas have a lot of experience drawing that route. They seem to do it with most of the airplane types, or at least the airplanes that they retire as well. But it's always something cool to see on flight radar.
no, it is, and it's I saw a funny meme on the internet, and it was El Al when they retired their 747. They literally drew a 747 over the Mediterranean Sea, and it said Qantas when we retired our last 747, we drew a kangaroo over the ocean, and then it had at the bottom British Airways has left the conversation because they didn't do anything.
Yeah, well, and it's if you're from Australia, and now if anyone is actually from Australia, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is like that airplane type opened Australia up to the world. Like that was the first airplane type that could do the Trans-Pacifics, that could do the Johannesburgs, that could do the Chiles. Like that airplane type, is really what facilitated transport to Australia for so many people, and not even just with Qantas, but like British Airways, Singapore, all of those airlines. That 747 was kind of the lifeblood of Australia in aviation for a long time. I actually was down on one of the ones they retired, and they flew on the world's shortest 747 flight down to Wollongong from Sydney. I got to go, and I got a picture of me in the flight deck with a former captain, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, it's a very important airplane type for the Australians.
No, absolutely is, and you're absolutely correct that that it was to the point where that really did open up the island. You no longer had to. You could go nonstop between the United States and Australia. You didn't have to stop in Hawaii, or any of the other small Pacific islands on the way down to Australia.
Mm-hmm. It even did the Dallas run for a while before the A380 got on it.
Yeah, I mean it's an amazing airplane, and we said it last show. The whales aren't going to be gone; they're just going to be gone from passenger service. But as we said, they're great airplanes. I loved working them. But man, their fuel load's
huge.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember. I mean, you talk about 330,000 pounds of fuel for your off blocks fuel for a trip, and the newer modern airplanes just. An A350 is probably somewhere around the 150 range. So you're cutting your fuel burn in half and carrying, 2/3 of the amount of people and stuff. So they're definitely, the new airplanes are definitely more cost effective than the mighty queen of the skies. But,
Hunchback.
Called a whale, queen of the skies.
Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah, it's such an iconic airplane, and then there won't be another airplane looking like it. And the A380 was a flop compared to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny how all the interesting looking airplanes are going away.
Yes. All right. Next article is it goes in a twist. I don't really see it as a twist. I call it business. American Airlines partners with JetBlue in bid for New York and Boston. This is basically saying that American and JetBlue came together in a code-share agreement will allow the airlines to sell seats on each other's airplane and earn and burn each other's frequent flyer miles. Executive say it's in an effort to capture more travelers in New York and Boston. It's just a market share grab is what it is. It's honestly, I think the next article will be quite similar to the Dallas-based company of American Airlines, also trying to catch up and tie up the West Coast and Alaska through a code share with another airline. But what do you guys think about this?
Well, there were talks, 6 months ago, or maybe even pre-COVID, that United and JetBlue were going to come up with some sort of merger or something like that. So that kind of takes away that rumor. But,
yeah, it'll be interesting. Be interesting because, like, I've heard about this from people that on Facebook that work at one of those airlines, and they're very concerned about the amount of flying that is going to go away for them, particularly on the A321s. So, be interesting to see how that all shakes out.
Mm-hmm.
And you already gave away the second news article, Mike.
I know I gave it away, but I said it's coming. But yeah, it's just I don't foresee. I predict this. There will be a merger out at the end, or because of this. I still feel there will be some further contraction in the U.S. airline market because of this pandemic, and someone's going to buy JetBlue. Someone's going to buy Alaska. Um, I really do think that you're going to have another. You're going to get rid of those mid-major carriers, and you're going to have four carriers.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out because, the obvious candidate would be American, and yet there's rumors going around American's going to declare bankruptcy. So how can they be buying airlines if they're declaring bankruptcy? We'll see.
Well, you buy them with debt, and then you declare bankruptcy, and there you go.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
All right, continuing on the Americans conquering the world. Alaska is going to join One World. Alaska Airlines, the West Seattle-based carrier, flies mostly 737 type aircraft, throwing a little A320s in there with their Virgin deal. Has join One World, become the alliance's 14th member airline, and bringing even more destinations and flights to customers. Yeah, I mean, these alliances are mostly big deals. I always find the alliances mostly they're good for. I always want to say they're good for the smaller carriers, opposed to the bigger legacy carriers in them. But really good global alliances allow you to book in one or two flights, a flight from Minot, North Dakota to Riga, Poland. I don't even think
Latvia.
Riga's in Poland.
It's in Latvia.
I was close. Eastern Bloc. I mean, so yeah.
Yeah, I kind of have the opposite view. Like, alliances are dead. Alliances don't mean anything when you could have, like certain airlines, they just make joint ventures and they get code share agreements. Like, what's the point of an alliance anymore? Especially since now alliances no longer seem to imply any code sharing. Like, you've got people like Qatar in One World that don't code share with anybody. So, like, why are you part of an alliance? Doesn't seem to make any sense.
Right.
Like, it's a waste of time and effort from what I can see, especially for Alaska, because they used to be able to partner with anybody. And now if they're locked into an alliance, now they're just locked into just those 14 airlines. And then, and again, it depends on the alliance. Like, Star Alliance seems like it mostly benefits United, Air Canada, and Lufthansa, and everybody else kind of gets the short end of the stick on that one. At least that's my perspective of it. So, like, alliances, depending on how they're structured, really only serve the big airlines sometimes.
Which is true. I mean, because you look at it, and from that perspective, they only serve the big airlines because now the big airlines can, get people to Europe or get people to Asia, and then get their passengers onto the smaller cities that they can't really support flying directly to, in order to go ahead and get them there.
Yeah, now for Alaska, and I think it kind of makes sense because I would be shocked if American and Alaska could have an immunized joint venture. But if you can get an immunized joint venture, why would you want an alliance? Doesn't seem to make any sense.
Yeah, and getting a joint venture between two U.S. based carriers is pretty rare to get that through, because mostly you would just call it a merger.
Yeah.
And acquisition. The joint venture thing is really, really more designed to be a two different nationalities getting together to buying one of the airlines buying a pretty hefty equity stake in the other one.
Mm-hmm. Well, Alaska will be an excellent company with One World. They've got some really good partners there, depending on how they're able to use them. So
yeah, how they use them, how they come out. All right, someone else put one last one in the show.
I did. I thought it was a little interesting for those of you space geeks out there, because I'm a space geek. For anyone who's been following Crew Dragon, that went up, I believe, at the end of, I want to say the end of May 30th, I think. Well, they're coming back to Earth on August 2nd, weather permitting. It's going to kind of be like the Apollo missions, where they're not going to be landing on Earth. They're going to be coming in and splashing down in the at a coordinated location in the middle of the Atlantic. So,
Isn't the ocean still on Earth?
that's yes.
Now, in the English language, there's Earth, but there's also Earth, and Earth can be ground. We put him in the Earth. You know what I
You
mean?
put them in the Earth, and they're landing in the ocean.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, you
That's the
said they
writer.
weren't coming back to Earth or weren't landing
Did
on
I
Earth,
not
and
say
I'm
that
like,
they were
well, they're in
landing on-
space. They're not on Earth now. Where else are they going to land?
They're going to land at Earth on the ocean, or
On
in
the
the
planet
ocean.
Earth, in the ocean.
In the ocean. Okay,
It's
clarification.
interesting that they're going with the Atlantic. Like, how far off the space coast is it?
I don't believe too far. It's let's see if the
About
article
50
says
feet. They're just going to swim
a couple
in.
100 miles, I would imagine.
Yeah, I believe it's 200 to 300 miles off the space coast is where they're returning to.
Yeah.
Right in between the ARs and waters. Hopefully.
But it's really
Yeah, just like when they launch off the space coast, they're going to close down the ARs and the waters routes so we can bring the astronauts home.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that they chose the Atlantic and not the Pacific. Like the early, like the Acme, the Geminis, they'd splash down in the Atlantic, but Apollos, it was all Pacific out of Hawaii. So I'm wondering why they're doing it in the Atlantic versus the Pacific, or what the considerations were.
I think it was recovery time, and the fact that they are not the United States government who has access to the United States Navy like the Apollo missions did. They have to fund their own recovery of the astronauts, and it's a smaller ocean to try to recover the people, the crew from.
Yeah, but of course, the SpaceX has a big operation on the Pacific side as well, right, out of Vandenberg. So they also have drone ships out in the Pacifics. Could have been either, right?
It is.
Have you guys-
And of course, if they're refurbing the rocket, it's closer to their factory in LA.
Well, that's really that's true. Have you guys actually seen the crew module of those of the Dragon?
Yeah, I watched the whole launch thing for
It's pretty
for 4
cool.
hours. It's like being in a
it's
Tesla.
pretty advanced, that thing. So, they've got all the technology on there and everything, just the flat screen monitors, and so I'll be interested in watching this and seeing it land. So,
Yeah.
Yes, Joe, it did look a lot like a Tesla on the inside, except the Tesla has one screen and that one had 3. I feel a little bit ripped off.
Oh man, if I had an extra 100,000 sitting around somewhere, I'd be getting a Tesla.
Well, it's easy. You get the Model 3. You get the cheap one.
Yeah, that Model 3 that's $30,000 for you guys, that's $70,000 for me.
How long do you have to own it before you don't have to pay import taxes?
You don't have to pay them anyway. It's the currency differential. Plus, of course, if you want to live up here, most people want 4-wheel drive, so you can get moving when there's a foot of snow on the ground.
Yeah.
Well, Model 3 is coming all-wheel drive.
Yep. Yeah, for 100,000 Canadian.
So you're saying the conversion rate's not very good for the Canadian dispatchers to buy Teslas?
That's correct.
And, well, battery life doesn't work very well when it's cold either, from what I hear.
Yeah,
From my coworkers that have one in Minnesota.
Yeah, my buddy's got it, and even the -50. He's like, I can get to work and back no problem on a single charge. And in the summertime, the battery life comes back up. Like, it doesn't seem like it actually negatively impacts it too much over time. So,
yeah, I think we'll talk about I have a coworker that has his up in Minneapolis, and he says in the wintertime he can only get about 150 miles out of a whole charge, opposed to the 312.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not too bad though, really.
No,
like that's more than enough to get to work, unless you live crazy far from your work.
Yeah. All right. Well,
in there.
All right. Well, Crew Dragon coming back to Earth. I do remember Elon saying that this is the part where he is the most. Obviously, this is the riskiest part of the mission for SpaceX. Yeah. They have been returning cargo Dragon vehicles, or whatever they call it. Yeah, it's cargo dragons, right? Mm-hmm. That's what they call them. They have been returning those to Earth, and that has been, opposed to the Soyuz, the only real quick way of getting experiments back to down from the International Space Station. So it's going to be intriguing to bring the human payload back.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I do really like about the Crew Dragon is the trunk. The fact that they can take, I think it's like 6,000 extra pounds of cargo that's packed underneath the capsule in what they call the trunk, and it's just an unpressurized part of the capsule that they can load stuff in the trunk and away they go.
Mm-hmm.
And then they take it out with the robotic arm.
Yeah, the Boeing one's supposed to be flying soon, isn't it?
I thought they said sometime in September.
Yeah, the ULA Boeing one. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
with the second attempt of an orbit rendezvous mission.
Yeah. Yeah, if that goes on track, they might be set to fly humans in December, maybe.
Oh, and then they got the Mars rover mission going out tomorrow. The 30th. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, and I think the UAE and China just launched Mars missions as well.
Yeah.
Or the UAE launched something. I don't know if it was Mars, but China definitely launched a Mars mission.
Watch out, Marvin. We're coming to get you.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the topic. I'm going to hit this button over here and hopefully not blast everyone's eardrums. Alrighty, Joe, take it away.
Okay, so I got this book here, which I know podcast's not a visual medium, but we're also streaming. It's 50 Skills That Make Your Life Easier as a Flight Dispatcher by Armin Reze. We got a link in the show notes to it if you want to pick it up on Amazon. So what I thought we'd do is we would go through the table of contents, not everything because there's 50 of them, but pick out a few and we'll talk about the skills and say if they're what you think about them. And I could read from the book too if you guys want. Okay, so number 1 in soft skills, don't be late. What do you think about that?
Yeah, don't be late, be on time. Because if you're late to the start of your shift, trust me, your relief is going to be late tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one way to make enemies with your relief.
And that's just not really a good dispatch soft skill. That's just a human life soft skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you got to keep in mind if you're thinking about getting into this career, that before you can take the desk, you need to get a briefing, and that briefing can take 15 minutes. So if you show up exactly on time, that means the next guy's he's leaving 15 minutes late, or she. So now you've just made somebody have to work an extra 15 minutes. So, all right, so that's a big one. Okay, so next one that I would say is dress well. What do you guys think about that? When you show up to work, is it jeans and a t-shirt? Is it nice clothes, business casual? No.
Well, don't ask Mike that because he works from home.
Shorts and a t-shirt. Or shirt, anyway. Not a visual meeting.
For us, our dress code is business casual, waist up. You must wear pants, and men must wear closed shoes. Ladies can wear sandals and things like that. But for us, when I started, it was dress code was business casual Monday through Thursday. During the day shift, the midnight shift could always wear jeans. I think remember up at Acme Compass, it was just business casual. Period. No matter what day or what shift you were working, you were in khakis and a polo. And then slowly over time, we've gone to the business casual from the waist up dress code. And currently I'm in the work from home dress code when I usually go to work. So that's usually somewhere around barefoot, usually workout shorts, pretty much. And then some sort of t-shirt usually. And usually on Fridays, that t-shirt doesn't have sleeves.
Yeah, for us, it's basically no PT gear and no flip-flops. No pajamas.
Okay.
So bad luck if you're a night shifter. Okay, so here's what the book says. since dispatch offices are behind the scenes, not customer facing, they tend to be more relaxed, but you can get important visitors to the airline because everyone likes to show off the OCC. And here's what he says. So here's a fact that may be hard for many US-based dispatchers to believe. Some airlines require dispatchers to wear pilot uniforms and wear epaulets. And then he recommends follow your dress code. But if they got nothing, go business casual. That's what he says. I think that's fair advice.
Yeah. We at Acme North, it's business casual, jeans, polo shirt. It's 7 days a week.
Yeah, I wear jeans and a golf shirt for the most part.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a good one. Train the newbies and spend time with visitors. Like, how many times are you trying to get a volunteer to take a job shadower? You know, if you're working the desk.
I always love training. I absolutely, positively, when I was working the floor, I absolutely love training new people. Being training new people to send flights and work releases, to training new system operations managers to run the airline. I mean, I got some great training scenarios. I love training. I love real life scenario based training. To really, we've all seen weird, strange things in our careers, and those weird, strange things are really good teachable moments for other people. So I love it. I mean, man, I got a guy, hook and sinker. He almost crapped his pants when he put down the phone. It was training, but I got a dispatcher. It was working a Transpac flight, and the aircraft was over the Kamchatka Peninsula, right over there, right over Petro. And I got a dispatcher came in, signed in, and I go, "Hey, Jeffrey, when your 583 is over Petro, I need you to call my desk and say that he's lost an engine and he's going to Petro, and sell it. Don't laugh or anything. Just put on your good old dispatcher freak out. Oh my God, I got one going to Petro voice." And so it's getting there, it's close, and the phone rings, and my trainee answers the phone, and I'm listening on the other line, and Jeffrey goes, Hey, Mikey, this Jeff over here. Yeah, the 583 lost the right engine. We're diverting to Petropavlovsk. Let you know, but I'm kind of busy dealing with this, so let me know what you want us to do when we get on the ground. And he just hung up, and he goes, the sound trainee goes, Did you hear that? And I'm like, yeah, brother, you got one going to Petro. This is going to be a busy night. And he goes, is this real? I'm like, well, did it sound real? But I had him on the hook for a good couple of minutes. And I go, hey, all right, it's training, but you're going to work this desk. I know you're going to. So you got to know where it's going to go. Because trust me, we're going to put one in Petro someday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at Acme Canada, we always preface stuff that it's an exercise if it's or for training purposes. But we have a very good reason for doing that. That happened earlier. So, yeah, I love training newbies, and I'm always the first person to volunteer if I'm working the desk. If they got a job shadower, because usually our job shadowers are either people who want to work in dispatch or in the OCC in general, or they're upgrading captains, or they're important VIP visitors. So why wouldn't you want to get to know them and brag about what you do, right? And then, yeah. with trainees, this is the great time to make sure they do it right,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm totally.
My experience is with upgrade captains. We get through a lot of those guys coming through the OCC and sitting with them, and it's amazing how much captains or prospective captains have no idea like what we do or what things we look at when we're planning a flight. So it's always a good eye-opening experience when you sit with those guys and show them the ropes.
Yeah, it's always the thing. Like I always try to, if I take a lot of fam flights or as many as I can because I enjoy sitting up front. But one of the things I always do is point out, like, you guys are working one flight, you've got the one thing right in front of you, but I've got 50 dudes in the air, and you're sitting there going, looks like the weather is really bad in this place. Well, I guarantee you, if you're 100 miles back, or 200 miles back, last thing I need is for you to be ACARsing me because I got the 3 guys ahead of you I'm still dealing with. I'll get to you when it's your turn. And if you don't hear from me, by top of descent, then yeah, send me a message. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Okay, so here's one. Have good math skills. What do you think about that?
It helps, but I think in this job, unfortunately, the flight planning systems do a lot of the work for you. I mean, just general in life, you should have decent math skills, but I don't think it's a strong requirement for a dispatch related job. What do you think, Mike?
I think you definitely need to have a solid, at least addition subtraction.
Yeah,
You need to
basics.
be able to do large number mental math pretty quickly on the fly, and by large number I mean you need to be able to add 4-digit numbers pretty easily and quickly on the fly, or even 3-digit numbers. You need to get 900 and some plus this. You need and that and the decimal points. You need some solid addition subtraction skills while you're working through things. You don't want to take the time and pull out a calculator and do 9.7 plus 8.2. You want to get the answer down pretty down and pretty quickly while you're doing it, and build your own mental makeup on how you do the math. I usually, when I'm rounding, adding numbers up, that I usually try to find things that go up to the next highest tens place and group those together, and then keep adding on top of each other on that. But yeah, yes, our flight planning system is systems that we have are complex computers, and they compute and crunch a bunch of numbers that a lot faster than any human would be able to do. But when you're in the thick of it with an emergency and you're trying to calculate bingo fuel and you're doing some mental math on, you got a flight holding and you're asking the crew, all right, what's your current fuel burn per hour, so you can kind of calculate in your head how much hold fuel they have left. I mean, I remember I had a 76400 holding for Detroit, and we knew we probably weren't going to get in. I'm looking through the COSPA and the ITWIS, and I'm kind of figuring out that the airport was going to be back open in about 30 minutes. And okay, what's your fuel burn per hour? Because this is what you got. And well, they only had about 15 minutes of hold fuel left, and the smart Alec and me wanted to go, why don't you guys just shut one down and burn half the fuel and we'll make it in? But we made our way to Cleveland with both engines running, but it was that quick mental math there that kind of really showed that, yeah, you kind of need this.
I will say that when you go through dispatch training and you're busting out the whiz wheel and you have to do a manual flight plan by hand, and you have to calculate the fuel burn, the winds, and all the runway distance, it's math skills are very important, and you will be required to do that by hand going through training. When you get into the majors, it's not so much that you need to do anything by hand per se, but to Mike's point, you do need to, if you have to calculate a landing distance because of an engine out or something or other, it's important that you do have that basic knowledge and be able to calculate that stuff quickly.
Yeah, my math skills are really, really bad. So I'm just really good at busting out the calculator, and I can do the figures faster than I could in my head. And the way I look at it is I owe it to my crews and my passengers to have the right answer. And if that means I need to use the calculator, then I'm using the calculator. And I'm just really good. I'm fast at it. Like, I can calculate without even looking now. So
can I summarize 3 points that I see here in the table of contents that all fit together?
Sure.
Read weather. Read nav charts, jet charts of place. Read MELs, and I think there was one other one.
NOTAMs.
Read NOTAMs.
Yeah.
Read them. I think that's the big key. Is you can get very complacent in the job, where you can get very complacent and you look and you don't take the time and read the damn TAF you're sending the airplane to. Sit there and read the NOTAMs. At least, I mean, if you're running 15 flights a day between Chicago and Milwaukee, and those are your two airports you're flying in between, at least read the NOTAMs for the first flight, and then monitor your messaging queue to see if there's anything up to date. Read the weather, read the TAF, make sure you're still legal. Taking the time and do those small little things that you remember when you were sending your first flight plan and you read everything before you hit that send button. Just because you're on flight plan number 10,502 doesn't mean you shouldn't take that same degree of accuracy to read the flight plan. Really read and understand what's going on. If you got a point and you're sending an airplane where the minimum landing minimums are going to be iffy or close, pull out the plates and read them. And I can say that, that when we had the whole EFB thing come around and taking the paper charts out of the cockpit, reading JEP charts was a sore spot with a lot of dispatchers, where it was a skill that they didn't really remember how to use. And I would say that wasn't just an Acme problem, but I'm saying that's probably just a dispatch problem all over. We read those JEP charts really well to get our certificates, and then a lot of the times you're not briefing an approach plate for every single flight like the pilots are. You're only looking at them when you need to, and usually you don't need to look at them all that often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I would definitely say, like slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Like you take your time, you do it right the first time, and that'll be way faster than send the ACARs. Then they write back and going, can we land with this condition? And then now you got to look it up. It's better to just have the information at the beginning. And I think this segues perfectly into my little soapbox rant about dispatch ethics. So we'll just jump to that for now. So I'm a firm believer that you have this is a legal thing, but I think of it as a personal thing. Every time I send a flight plan, every time I'm doing flight watch, I always have in the back of my head, or sometimes in the front of my head, depending on what's going on, the fact that by signing that flight plan, I am saying that flight is safe and legal, and I owe it to the average of 5,000 to 10,000 people that I'm managing in a single shift. When you think of all of the passengers on all of these planes and all of these crews, I owe a duty of care to every single one of them, and it behooves me to be at the top of my game every single time and be right every single time. Now, I recognize that sometimes, you can't be perfect. Nobody's perfect, but you owe it to them to catch the error as fast as you can, or as soon as you know the error, fix it. So I really take that really personally, and I think sometimes dispatchers just get used to clicking the button, sending the flight plan, and not thinking about the 150 people, the 200 people, the 400 people that are actually on that plane, trusting you to bring it every single day. That's my rant.
There's people on the airplanes?
Unless you work for FedEx. Well, then there's still two. For now, anyway. You saw Airbus has got full taxi, takeoff, landing, all automated on the A350 now. So for now,
just to that point, when I just started and working the job at the regional airline and really getting started in the industry, it really wasn't until really one of my, I think it was my second FAM ride or one of my commuting flights home that it really clicked for me that, wait a second. All of these flights still really are, though that passenger number is real. Like those are living, breathing souls on board. Like, yeah, you get in the grain of the work, in the grain of the job, and you're like, you're sending out, you're making sure the numbers work and all like that. You're not thinking about Aunt Susie who's on the airplane, or you're not thinking about anyone else. Has anyone dispatched a flight with a family member on board?
Yes.
Yeah,
I've dispatched a flight with me on board. I released it, drove to the terminal, got on that plane.
I've done that before too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I was lucky or unlucky very early in my dispatching career to have this point really driven home to me. I was working a flight at previous airline that unfortunately had a young person, university junior or freshman even, was coming back from vacation, and they went into cardiac arrest in the middle of waters, and we diverted to Orlando at 2 a.m. and I was doing everything that I possibly could to make sure we got people there, but that wasn't the station we were flying to that day. It was a small airline that I was working for at the time, and unfortunately that young gentleman passed away. And and I was on the phone with all of these operations. I was on the phone with Orlando Tower, Orlando Approach, Miami Center, Jacksonville, to do what I could to bring this person in as fast as we could. And they got them to the lead-in line. I was listening to it on live ATC, and I had the tower on the phone on the other side, and nobody would bring them into the gate. And they had firefighting waiting there at the gate. And the bridge I couldn't connect was getting them that last 10 feet. And they're doing
35
CPR on
feet was the difference.
Yeah, and they're sitting there doing CPR on the gentleman.
Jeez.
And that's when I was like, was there anything I could have done? I've thought about it over the decades since it happened, and I don't think there was. But, it just goes to show that when this happens, you could be the difference between somebody dying and living. You absolutely can, and it can happen to you. So that ever since then, I've taken it really seriously. It's so easy to fall into the trap of, well, every day is fine and it's a good weather day and I don't have to pay attention. But, that could happen to you at any time.
Yep.
And you could be the person that makes the difference.
So in the chat room, James asks, because he actually bought this book. He said he just got the book on Saturday, so that it's quite a coincidence. He goes, in the book, the author mentions that missing NOTAMs could cost you your job. Are there any other fatal errors, career ending in dispatching that happen often?
I wouldn't say they're often, but not catching NOTAMs can be career ending, but so can misreading MELs.
Yep. I was going to say MELs are probably one of the biggest mistakes that can happen.
Yeah, and I think that also boils down to, this is Joe's soapbox episode here. It behooves dispatchers to be competent in the aircraft systems for every aircraft they dispatch. I know.
What?
And yet, a lot of, I'm a huge flight sim nerd, so I love airplanes and I study them because I fly them in my computer. Great. But, you're sitting there, you need to know all of these systems in order to make these MELs make sense, because, hate to say it, MELs don't always make sense. They can be contradictory with things that are in the flight ops manual, and there can be issues with them. They're written by humans, and you catch them and they fix them. But if you don't know the airplane and its systems, you're not going to catch it. You're going to make the mistake, and you're going to be screwed.
Yeah, there's a topic on the Airline Pilot Guy show. There was a question of basically asking the pilots, if say you're in a forest fire and there's only one airplane left and there was your only ticket out there, could you fly it out? And a lot of them were like, well, how do we get it started? Was like their big hang up of like, well, how do you get the airplane started? Mm-hmm. And well, myself, who might have had some times when I was off duty, gone into the sims, into a cold, dark sim, and using my dispatch knowledge of aircraft systems, shocking. I was able to get the aircraft started. Once you know the pneumatic system, okay, the pneumatic system has to turn the engines, okay, where's the start switch? Once you know the basic flow of a jet, it's not that hard to get a jet started. Now,
batteries,
is it getting
APU
started?
engines.
Yeah, is it getting started correctly or the right way? Maybe, maybe not. I remember talking about airplanes. We were we were getting out. We went down to the C series sim. And yes, I called it a C series still, folks. The A220 sim for those Airbus lovers. And the way that engine starts, I thought the sim was giving me a hung start, but it took that long for the engine to really spool up and get going. But I thought it was a hung start. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, this is a hung start. Why is the sim giving me a hung start? Did someone press a button back there? But no, it's just that's the way the engine starts. And it was just able to take the airplane, get it started, taxi it out, and go flying go take the airplane some flying. Fun airplane to fly, great airplane to fly. It's just you take that basic stuff in it. But no, I would agree. MELs were a huge one. We just had a big anniversary of that Air Canada 767 that landed in Gimli. Why? Because of an MEL. Because there was a misinterpretation of an MEL for a fuel system, and there was a misconversion between liters and pounds, or kilograms and pounds.
Yeah, they did the wrong conversion. They did the 1 to pounds, not to kilos. Yeah, because they just switched as well.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's a big one. I think as dispatchers and even the airline industry, one mistake's not going to end your career. One mistake might get you some more training. But at least at my airline, I know Greg's airline, I'm pretty sure Joe's airline, we have an ASAP program. We have a air safety reporting program where if you make an error, you can self-disclose and say, hey, I made this error.
Mhm.
This is what happened. This is what I was doing. This was the root cause of the error. And you really give the whole gamut. And a lot of the times those are just get reported and filed, and you get the error. You might get a talking to, you might not. You might have to get extra training done. Most likely you won't. But a lot of that ASAP training and all that ASAP data, I know that my airline has a very, very good ASAP program, meaning we have a lot of dispatchers that file reports.
Mhm.
And you're like, oh, that means they're making a lot of mistakes. Well, yeah, but now they're saying they're making the mistakes, and now the training department can take all of that data that they're getting from the ASAPs and say, here you go. This is what we need to work on.
Mhm.
This is what we need to focus our recurrent training on to lower this air count.
Yeah, I'll definitely add on to that. In my opinion and in my experience, I'm sure you guys could say the same. Making the mistake's not going to get you fired for the most part, unless it's like really egregious and against SOP and you really should have known better. What will get you fired is if you try to hide the mistake.
Absolutely.
That will get you fired.
Yep.
The other thing that I think will get you fired is not responding to an emergency properly, or at
Yeah, I
least
would say so.
some significant retraining. Yeah,
Yes.
that would be a big one. So I guess that's another good one here is, be prepared for the unexpected and the emergencies. I think
That
yeah.
phone doesn't ring just to say hi.
Unless it's somebody across the hall.
Very rarely does that phone ring because it's a pilot or someone that wants to just say, hey, how's it going? Look at the flight plan. Everything looks great. Thanks for your hard work. I don't think I've ever gotten that phone call.
That's just for sports scores.
Mm.
Yeah, but now they're calling wanting something. They want sports scores.
Mhm.
No, but yeah, they're calling because something's going on and some sort of emergency, and you need to be able to react to that quickly.
Or they just want a briefing.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'll brief
Yeah.
a crew no matter what. Briefing to me is fine. There's some
Yeah.
people that absolutely hate giving briefings, but nope, I'll give a briefing all I
It's
want because that
required.
means
I like
Acme
briefing.
North, it's required for international flights. You have to
Yeah.
give a briefing.
I love it because you can set the tone before the wheels even move.
Yeah, for us, we do the briefings for anything ETOPS or to over oceans, let's say, but not to the Caribbean necessarily. But yeah, like I find that the briefing is the time when if I'm going to notice a mistake, it's not going to be while the plane's in the air and I've got no reason to look at the flight plan. It's going to be when I'm briefing the flight. That's when I'm going to catch my mistake. So I like briefings. Yeah, and like I think having the ability to think fast, think on your feet, and think logically, and not get overwhelmed by things changing rapidly, like dealing with an IROP day. If you can't deal with an IROP day, you need that skill. That's a bread and
You're in the
butter
wrong
skill.
line of business if you can't deal with it.
Yeah,
This is a great book.
mm-hmm.
I'm just reading through that was page one of the we just kind of handled emergencies. We kind of checked that box. Understand and calculate crew legalities. That one
we got crew scud.
That's what I was going to say. I'm like, yeah, I think you need to be aware of the limitations and know if there's a limitation coming for your flight, and things like that. But I think understanding every single one and knowing how to calculate every single one of the crew times, man, that's what scheduling's for.
No, and when I was working the desk, I don't do that very often. But when I'm the chief, like the shift chief, I do that a lot more. I find because we'll have the duty manager come and say, can you get this guy into this airport before this time because of crew drop dead, and I got to calculate when they got to leave by in order to make their minimums. But working the desk, I don't do that as much. So yeah.
Well, the FAR 117, we're responsible for, at least at Acme North, for the critical off time. I mean, if they're not going to make the time that they need to be in the air by, we need to make sure we're bringing them back to the gate.
Yep.
And so
yeah, and that's the same for us up in Canada. Things like load control and the crew sched stuff, that's still we're responsible for, but it's delegated under our operational control system. So Yeah, so that's a big one here. And oh man, I would love to see something happen interesting on a jump seat ride.
Yeah, yeah. James in the chat goes, "Are you observing those same issues during your jump seat rides?" No, no, because jump seat rides are routine and boring.
I actually had one really good one where we had I was going to Hawaii out of Calgary, and we had an issue with the aircraft. It was a super cold day in Calgary. There was problems with the bleed air. I know it was one of those -50 days that we get, for 2 weeks a year, and it was really interesting to see it from the crew's point of view, because like I can see it from the office point of view, where like I know there's an issue, maintenance is dealing with it, da 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 da, right? You know that it's all happening, but it's nothing to actually sit there and see it. That's the only interesting fam ride I've ever really been on.
Are you guys allowed to take your fam rides in a simulator?
No.
We can.
Yeah, we can as well. I think we can do it every 2 years. Joe, that's something you should push for, because trust me, you want to see a fun fam ride, do it in the sim. Do it when the guys in front are sweating, and do it when you see the abnormals. You see every single abnormal that you know happens, but now you can actually see it in a crew environment.
Yeah, a number of years ago, they had a program where dispatchers could sit in on the loft stuff, but they wouldn't let it count as the fam ride, and then I think it got shut down. I think because the pilots didn't want us there, which fair enough. I get it. Yeah. So that was one for us. The other ones. What else is good in this book?
There's one here that's from the operations guy, is huge, and I could write a whole book about it. And that is, keep your ETDs and your ETOs updated. There's so much that runs on an airline based on those times. ETDs would be your estimated time of departure. ETO would be your estimated time off. I want to know what your ETA is. That needs to be kept up to date no matter what. You got a flight going into holding, you better put some sort of time on that ETA for me, because that makes such a difference on the turn of the aircraft and all the other decisions that happen down line. There's a lot of times that when you don't have good times in the system, I, as a system operations manager, don't know there's a problem. All of a sudden, a flight blocks in 45 minutes late. All of my standard ground time goes from all's good to nothing, and you go, wait, what? Where did this come from? You don't have time to react.
Yeah, and I can say from the Acme North end of things that's a big concern and a big problem, because if an aircraft is holding, let's say in the they're on the Star, there's no automation on our end that will update their ETA at all. So the dispatcher, depending on their proactiveness, they could go in there and update the ETA, but most don't, because A, they don't know how to, possibly, or there's no automation that does it. So the airplane can hold 20 minutes and you're just sitting there.
When it's possible for our crews to send in ACARs that they're entering in hold, they can put in their EFC, and then they can put in their new ETA, and that goes into the box.
Yeah, that doesn't happen on our end.
So at Acme Canada, we've got operations coordinators who generally deal with making sure the times are right. In fact, I'm not sure if dispatchers even have the right permissions to put those times in. Our process for us is all communication through the chief to the other departments. So, knowing the EFCs and stuff, that's all gets reported, and we do it verbally for the most part. But yeah, but knowing that it's happening, there's nothing worse than when you're sitting at the desk and you're looking and you see a flight doing a missed approach, and you're like, why haven't I heard that there's a problem at this airport? You go find out, oh, I didn't even know.
As an ops manager, my biggest thing is I absolutely hate when I have to do this, is call a dispatcher for an off time. And I usually call up, hey, where's Acme 123? I'm not sure. He should be off the ground by now. And let me take a look. I'm like, hey, he's at top of descent. Can you get a dang off time in there so before I get an on time? I'm like, come on.
But again, isn't that something that should come from ACARs?
Well, yeah, but it's sometimes ACARs takes a hiccup. Sometimes it doesn't get processed the right way.
There's a black hole at one end of the runway.
Yeah, I mean, or the other one is when you don't have an airplane that has an on time.
Yeah.
And we have automation that says, and it lights up on the dispatcher's roster. It says past planned arrival, and it's in red. And it's like, how do you not see that?
Hmm.
I'm like, can you call the station to see if they're there? Can you at
Hmm.
least call a tower to make sure they're there, to make sure that, well, they're not somewhere that we don't want them to be? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, like at Acme Canada, our tech guys are really switched on and they're really smart, and they've actually created a whole set of email alerts that will go out to all of the right teams. Saying this flight has been out for this many minutes but is not off, or this flight is past its ATD, or it's been on by this many minutes and not in, for especially for the tarmac delay rules.
Yeah.
So we're really lucky that we got such switched on guys down the back, that they've got all that set up for us, because you know when you're working that many flights, when you're working as many flights as I'm sure we all work, it's really hard to stay on top of the minutiae. You got plans to put out, you got a guy holding over here. It's really easy to miss something. And not that it's
really
good or it's
easy to
acceptable.
miss the mundane and the routine.
Exactly. It's easy to miss the mundane and routine. So when you see this flight's on the ground, okay, he's on the ground. I don't have to care about him anymore because he's not going to be missing. And yet, there was an incident up here where the flight's on the ground, and I'm sure the dispatcher's just waiting to throw it off their desk as soon as they get it in time, and another plane pushed back straight into them, and then there's an evacuation right in front of the gate. So it just goes to show that you never know when it's going to happen to you, right?
All right, and it's the whole thing. Like, I mean, I know when we were tried, and whenever I had a trainee, there were some times where I'd work a desk where your flights usually terminated before the end of your shift, or literally very, really close to shift time, where you actually didn't hand any flights off unless they were egregiously late.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of times trainees like, all right, they're on the ground, we're out of here. I'm like, no, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean they're on the ground? They're not in the gate yet.
Until they block
the same
in,
thing.
You're still liable for that.
Absolutely.
I'm like, a fuel truck can run into the side of the airplane and blow up, and man, whoosh, you're gonna go take a P test for that one because that's an aircraft accident. Now your name's on the release.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you guys have seen that China Airlines 737 with the center tank detonation, right? That video on YouTube, yeah, that's like, it's shocking how fast it happens when it happens.
Yeah.
So I guess if you're going to think about being a new dispatcher, you need to have the good attention to detail, and again, nobody's perfect, so we're not expecting perfection, or expecting, like I say, like I'm going to hire everybody. But you don't need to be perfect, but you need to have a good attention to detail. You need to be able to think on your feet, and you need to be able, like, really attention to detail. You need to be able to read those note ends. You need to have the commitment to do the job properly, because it's so easy to fall into bad habits or to let things slide.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great book. I can see at least 50 show topics right here.
Mm-hmm. All right, so last
honestly,
one.
Each chapter could be a show.
100%. Like, prioritize. That's one we didn't talk about. Communicate with others, coordinate, come up with solutions, listen and learn. So the last one I want to talk about is cockpit etiquette on your FAM rides. So what do you guys think about cockpit etiquette?
Don't fall asleep in the jump seat.
Don't have a beer before your FAM flight, obviously.
Well, that too.
Well, obviously. I think I got this one really drilled into my psyche my first week of being a dispatcher. Got through training, got all of that, got my certificate number, got in the jump seat system so I could jump seat. And I was commuting, and I was taking an American Eagle flight from Memphis back up to Chicago to home, back to the family and things like that. And I get on board, I check in with the crew and say, hey, Captain, my name's Mike. I'm jump seating, and a gate agent gave me a seat in the house, seat in the back. Here's my stuff. Have a good flight. Basically what I said. And so we're back there. It's a E175, no big deal. Service comes around, and I'm asleep because I was up at 3 a.m. It's the end of my shift. I'm tired. And flight attendant wakes me up. I'm like, he's like, do you need anything? I'm like, no, I'm fine. He goes, the captain wants to talk to you before you get off the airplane. And I go, okay, sure. And I go through and talk to the guy, and the captain's like, hey, look, what you did, that's not cool. You've been with your airline for 4 days, and It's not the gate agent's jump seat. It's my jump seat. You need to ask for permission to ride my airplane. I'm probably going to give it to you, but you need to ask. You need to be. And he just kind of went around. First I thought the guy was being a real dink, but that was something that stuck with me. It's always stuck with me the rest of my career. When I was doing my international jump seat rides, I would email the two captains 2 or 3 weeks prior once I figured out who the crew names were for that. And I go over the duty pilot, I get those pilots' names, and I would send them an email, and I get their email addresses because I wanted to let them know that I was going to be there well in advance because they're not used to having jump seaters ride in the flight deck on a 18-hour flight to Dubai. They're just something they're not looking. They're not used to it. They're not looking forward to it. It's a complete surprise to them, and I didn't want to be a complete surprise.
Yep.
Yeah, I echo that. Communication with the crew ahead of time, making sure that they are aware that you're going to be there, why you're there, and you're not there to critique them. You're just there to observe, and asking permission. I learned that the hard way too, Mike. I kind of did the same thing where, oh yeah, they gave me a seat and have a good day, and the captain's like, okay, you do need to ask permission. I'm like, yeah, I'm so sorry. I said, in all fairness, this is my first time jump seating. So, but yeah, I've learned very quickly that that's something you really need to do.
Even a couple of months ago when I took that 88 flight to Pittsburgh, to Philadelphia and back, with Captain Jeff, I asked him before if it was okay. And then I still showed up with all my stuff and handed it to him because I know he knows me and all that, but come on, we got to check the boxes.
First officer may not know you.
Yeah,
exactly. Even last winter, I flew up to Green Bay to go, and it really flew to Appleton to go to the Bears Packers game with Dr. Steph. I flew up with the crew, and that flight crew had a 30-hour layover. So on my flight home on Monday after the game, it was the same two pilots. And we're at the gate and all that, and Captain goes, all right, let's check the box. Let me see your stuff to make sure you didn't change the last 36 hours. But that's guess what? I had it right there. I had it out. I wasn't like, come on, you saw it when I flew up. No. Here you go. Here's everything.
Yeah, and you don't want to be the guy who makes all your colleagues lose their jump seat privileges.
Right. So. And my other big thing is if you're below 10K, shut your trap. Say nothing.
Yeah.
Especially because you're on the CVR. If something happens below 10,000 feet and they hear cam 3, I don't want to be on the CVR recorder in an accident database. I want my voice to be shut up. I don't want the dispatcher was asking stupid questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very much the same way below the 10,000 feet, unless I see something, which has happened, like, again, everyone's human, they forget stuff. Or, like one time we were on final at a previous airline, and there was a flock of birds, and they were all looking for it, and they said, if anyone sees it, say it, and I saw them, and I pointed it out, and we were at 500 feet on final, so that's...
Right, but that's an operational need, and that's something that you're still part of the crew, and now your extra set of eyeballs are in the flight deck. But
yeah, and the other thing, I'll answer back if they ask me a question or they say something to me.
Yeah.
Like if they initiate, then I will respond.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't want to be. It's easier for me to behave like one of them than it is for me to be like, I'm not saying anything, and then they're looking back at me. Are you okay? Right. So, yeah, and I do the same thing as you guys. I always email my crews in advance. I like it for two reasons, because either I try to do it in advance so that they either, if they don't want to have me, they can swap the flight or do whatever they want to do. The other thing is, if they do want to have me, now they know I'm coming and they can have their questions ready, right? So it works out good. It works out better for me because that way I've got a crew that wants me there as opposed to a crew that's going to pull out a newspaper after top of climb, right? So
I can also say that this book was definitely written by someone in the airline industry because the blank pages have intentionally left blank on them.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah. So, I have to say, I think that I'm incredibly lucky, and I think you'd all agree to have the job that we have and have the responsibility and the trust placedness that we do and to have the opportunities that we have. And I'm just so grateful to all of the people who've decided to hire me and all the companies that have taken me on to let me do this job, because it's so
Absolutely.
cool. So, yeah, and you're always lucky, right? You have a bad experience. You may not feel lucky at the moment, but you should be lucky because you've learned something before something really bad happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't feel lucky at the time when that 20-year-old died, but in the 10 years since, I've been able to help people who may have had similar. I've been able to be the guy who made that thing happen, right?
Right.
So,
yeah, it's flipping through this book as I'm scrolling through the sample here on the Amazon. This is a dang good book, and I'm probably just gonna get it to read it again.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna get it. And hey, we can pick some show topics from here.
Or you totally pick some show topics from here.
Yeah.
We're gonna find this on the American Amazon. Joe's link has Amazon.ca, and all the prices are in funky currency.
Hey, it's cheaper for you. Yeah, like there's some really good stuff in here. Like we could have a whole podcast on handling emergencies, communication, and coordination, because that's.
Oh, one other thing that would help with your jump seat ride: bring donuts for the crew. They like that.
Especially the flight attendants.
I got on a KLM 747 one time as a standby because I brought the crew chocolates. I'm pretty sure, but I didn't give them to the flight attendants. I gave them to the captain, and I was this close to riding in a 4-7 jump seat. They found a seat in the back, and it was between 5 fat guys, and it sucked. But you still got where you were going, right?
But it's better than the seat in the gate watching the airplane go away.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I had that when I was trying to go to Australia. The very first time I was gonna take a trip after I got on at a major, and it was like, well, I'm stuck in LA. What am I gonna do? Oh, I'm gonna go to Vegas.
Yep. Yeah, $13.99 US dollars. What do we say here? This is 1851 Canadian. Yeah, I think this is. I think that's a really good investment. Mm-hmm. Joe, thanks for sharing this. This is.
I have to thank the president of the ADF for posting it on the ADF Facebook page. They were going to do a little dispatch reading group, so I picked it up from her. We can talk about it in future at some point, maybe.
Hopefully. All right, what's next in the show topics? I don't think there's anything else. I didn't have anything in the life section that I really wanted to talk about. And yeah. Anyone else got anything else they want to talk about? How many crickets? Do we have a countdown clock going till October 1st?
I have number of paychecks remaining. 4 paychecks.
That's horrible.
Every paycheck I get, okay, there's one off. Tick that one off.
Thank you, Instacart.
I don't know.
We'll see. Do, right?
Yeah, we're hoping for the best. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. This obviously is going to be a trying time in the industry. Starting 4 days from now, there's going to be 97 Acme dispatchers that will be leaving the company. And I said this on the last podcast, but 3.5 millennia of aviation experience walking out the door. And that's pretty sad when you have to measure experience by millennia. I mean, it's 3,600 years of combined aviation experience.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, like they always talk about the 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. Like 10,000 hours for a pilot, that's what, 2,000, 6 years, 5 to 6 years. For us, I did the math. If you're working 12-hour shifts like we do, that's a year and a half to 2 years, depending on how many shifts you work to get your 10,000 hours of experience. So just goes to show that dispatch works a lot more flights.
Yeah, we have a lot of dispatchers that are leaving with, man, I've seen 30s plus 30, everything 30, 30, 30, 40, 40, 40. And I think we have one guy, I think he's over 55 years with the company. I've tried so hard to get this guy on the podcast ever since I started it. He just won't do it. But he started with Pan Am dispatching flying boats. And
Okay, what do we got to do to get this guy on?
I don't know. I'm gonna go over his house and mug him and stick a. I mean, he's got so many great stories from Pan Am, and he was dispatching back in the day where the dispatcher was actually at the gate at the airport and watching the airplanes
Like in
leave.
Europe.
Yeah, Europe, South America. He did a tour with Pan Am down in Rio. I really want to get him on there because he's living history, and he's in his 80s, and well, he needs some information coming out of his head.
Yeah, when I was at that last ADF conference that I was at, which was the one in Atlanta, which I guess I missed you guys at that one.
I was working that one.
Oh man, so I might have seen you on the tour then. But it was they had a great presentation about the history of dispatch. I'd love to see if we could get that guy on. I don't remember who it was.
Oh, that's the same guy.
Oh really?
Oh really?
Old guy, kind of round in the middle. Wears his belt cockeyed. Monty.
That sounds like a lot of dispatchers. You could basically describe almost anybody.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. It's amazing. So, all right. So we already did the disclaimer. So you can find show notes for this episode at flyinlife.com/2020/62. You can find all of us on the social medias, Flying in Life on everything. That would be Twitter, Facebook, and the Instagram. And Gregg is DXDude78. Joe's publishing company can be found at facebook.com/sixcatspress. And if you have questions like James did in the chat room, which I asked him to send us an email with them, because those are questions I'd really like to bring up on our next show, which will hopefully happen on the 10th of August when we do that. I'm really looking forward to that episode. So hopefully everything still comes together. You can send us questions at contact@flyinlife.com. Opening and closing music is from bensound.com and Purple Planet. Yep, we got to say their names because we got to thank them for their stuff. And also, I'd like to thank the ADF, the Airline Dispatchers Federation, because they have allowed Dispatcher Gregg to post the podcast on their social media feeds because they like what we're doing here. So if you are not a member of the ADF, if you're looking to become a dispatcher, the ADF is a great place to start. There used to be, and hopefully there will be again, some boards on there. There's scholarships that the ADF has, and we'll be really talking about those a lot coming up when those deadlines are coming due. And it's just a good resource for other dispatchers across the industry to get together and know each other. So, anyone have anything else? Last parting words?
No. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a great week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm jealous of Joe's daylight.
I know.
I will not be.
Yeah, you won't be in December.
I was about to say I'm not going to be jealous in November, but
I have to say, we're the sun is now no longer coming straight in the window. Like at the height of summer, it was coming in from the north, and now it's coming in from the south. 2 days ago, it was the straight on, and now it's to the south.
It's getting dark earlier.
It gets dark earlier, and you can really tell. Like it's really noticeable. It's like a 5 to 10 minute difference every day, almost.
Wow.
Yeah, like we're that far north.
Wow, because like here in the lovely part of the world where it doesn't snow, it's like it's a minute. It's like a minute off every day.
Yeah, yeah, and we're 30 degrees this week. It was 28 today, and we're supposed to be in the high 20s, low 30s all week.
I can't believe it's so cold already.
Of course. Real temperature scale, a temperature scale that isn't based on some sort of ridiculous math / salt water.
We're about 33 here.
I'm logging into ForeFlight to tell you what it is because it is 9:43 at night and it's probably still, I'm going to guess 32, 33 outside.
Gross.
It was 97 degrees Fahrenheit. So do the math on that one.
37?
Hot. It was hot.
Okay, according to the Atlanta Metar right now, it's the same temperature here, 28 degrees.
28.
Yep.
They must have had some weather up there. I think it might have rained up there, which cooled it off. Let me see where we're closer to my hizzy.
And in Chi-Town, it's 27, so we're all within a couple of degrees of each other for
There you go.
the 1 week that this will ever happen.
Yeah, right. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh, it's actually cooler.
You and I
It's
might get close
26
in the
outside.
winter.
It was hot yesterday. We were at almost 100 here yesterday, so
Yeah.
it was hot and muggy.
And my mom complains Atlanta's too hot.
Yeah.
Doesn't get over 100 here. Very
Thanks for
rarely.
listening to Weather Nerds.
All right,
We
that's
should
it,
have
everybody.
another
We're gonna.
topic.
Hey, there might be some outtakes at the end of this. So if you're still listening to this, I'd wait all the way to the end of the scroll bar for this week. Just saying. All right, everyone. I'm gonna pause it here. Thanks for listening. Have a good one, everybody.
All right.
All right, we're done recording there. Oh, dude, we almost went for hour and 40 minutes. Oh, wait, no, we got to take the 5 minutes off the front that Greg didn't say anything about, read a disclaimer, and then we're down to, about 90 minutes.
We're getting inching that much closer to the airline pilot guy.
We're getting closer.
Be right back. I got to get another drink.
Okay.
One day we're going to get there. We're going to hit that 3-hour mark.
God, whenever we hit 3 hours, I'm going to sell the podcast to you guys, and I'm done. Yes, Mom, air conditioning is great, but so is heat and humidity in a swimming pool. All right, I'm going to end the broadcast so us dispatchers can just sit and talk to each other. So thanks for listening, everybody. James, send us an email with those questions. Everyone else, thanks for listening, and have a good one.